through the internet, at work through the intranet, so it's a little more secure. Number of things that you can use if you get creative with it as a training methodology. So let's start with this phrase that's used in your book, digital collaboration. Bottom line, use of technology to enhance and extend employees' abilities to work together as a team, get the job done, maximize performance, maximize efficiency here, regardless of their geographic proximity. Obviously, tonight we're doing this via Zoom, so all of you are spread out all over the place here. With training, I've done a lot of training with people in different states, different countries. I was home, they were home, I was in a different country, a number of different things here. But through the use of technology, through the use of digital collaboration, we were still able to get work done. We didn't have to fly everyone in. We didn't have to all meet together. We didn't need to have multiple training sessions, that sort of thing. So obviously, technology has benefited, all of society, but HR and specifically training and development, a whole heck of a lot. Now, when we talk about this collaboration that we have with each other, so me as a trainer, you as a trainee, or vice versa, we could do it via synchronous or asynchronous collaboration. So synchronous collaboration or communication, as it's sometimes referred to, is like this, live. That you are watching this now as I'm sitting here giving this lecture. You can ask me questions. We can have a real-time back and forth communication process. So a number of technologies obviously allow for synchronous communication or collaboration. Asynchronous, not in real time. So just so you're familiar with the terminology. So if you send me an email, I may check it in an hour. I may check it later tonight. I may not get to my email till sometime tomorrow. So you might not get an answer immediately. There's not that real time back and forth type of communication, and different technologies fall into one of these buckets or the other. They use the term computer-based training, or CBT for short, basically just using a computer. Here, specifically, people like to tease out this phrasing here that, well, this is not web-based. There's no connection to the internet through computer-based training, as opposed to online learning or web-based learning or e-learning or whatever you want to call it here. And I use these words interchangeably. I'm not really married to one or another here, but basically here, most trainers are referring to the delivery of training content with the assistance of the web, using the internet in some way, shape, or form. So slight, I guess, ticky-tacky distinction between those two. In terms of the advantages of e-learning, there are a bunch of them. I mentioned a number of them at the beginning of the lecture here. Here's a few more. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to give a presentation where you're trying to make an argument to switch something over from an old school paper pencil type delivery, in-person delivery, to more of an e-learning format, here are some bullet points for you to help you make your argument. Now, with any decision we make in training and development, there are obviously a number of factors we need to take into consideration, and e-learning is obviously included in that. There will be a cost associated with it. The thing is, well, how much? Depends how many bells and whistles you want, what exactly you're doing. You could get away with some of this e-learning stuff on the cheap, and some of it will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just like anything, we can design it any way you want, from the low end to the top of the top end here. So cost for some organizations might be prohibitive. You might not be able to do exactly what you want because it may cost a little more than you want to spend. To learn online, there's that motivation factor there. That's one of the problems with online classes is there's not that trainer, there's not that teacher, there's not that professor kind of getting on your case a little bit more and making sure that you stay on track. It's more like, hey, get to this whenever you get around to it sort of thing. So the onus is really on you to stay up with the content and any, in this case, assignments I give you, any readings I assign, so on and so forth. Management, maybe like, oh, come on, there's a fad, we're not going to do this. So there may be some convincing there. If employees don't have access to internet or intranet, depending on how you're wiring things here, if you're doing it at work, I've been in some organizations where we pretty much had to rewire the entire thing to give employees access to files and different materials they needed. Return on investment. We talked about that going back to Kirkpatrick and evaluating training. Well, here, in terms of if I go to my boss and say to him or her, hey, I want to buy this learning management system or whatever it is, it's going to cost us $50,000. My boss is going to ask me, well, is it worth it? How much bang for a buck do we get out of that? What's the return on investment? So that one is a little tricky to calculate. And then finally, just like anything, it's hit or miss. There's some really good stuff out there and really crummy stuff. This use of technology in training and development is still, in the grand scheme of things, looking at the history of teaching people here throughout the course of history, very much in its infancy. So there are a number of things that, it would be cool if we could do that, but the technology just doesn't allow for that right now or can't accommodate that. So there are some limitations there. Is e-learning effective? Is it useful? Does it benefit the trainees? Yes and no. It's just like any tool. I hate to be wishy-washy there, but it's just like any tool that you use. Depends how you use it. If you were to ask students, what do they think of online classes? What do they think of hybrid classes? Things such as that. I usually get 50-50 mix in the classroom, and I wouldn't doubt that our class would be the same way. Some students swear by it. They love it. That they can, check into, in this case, Blackboard, whatever they want. They could do the assignments at their own pace, that sort of thing, especially if we didn't have these lectures. And I just, like I do with some of my classes, just let you go. And I don't talk to you unless you contact me first, unless you reach out to me and you have a question or a concern. So those students and with crazy work schedules and family schedules, so on and so forth, they love it. In terms of getting the most out of it, a number of students say, I really learned a lot by taking these online courses. Other students hate them. Can't stand them. If they had their choice, they would take every class here at CSU in person. That it's just, they like the face-to-face interaction with a teacher, with a professor. Coming to class keeps them a little more on track, a little more disciplined. There's a little more structure in place, especially if I have you coming to class to take quizzes, take exams, that sort of thing, where you have a regular schedule where you're always here in front of me. They like that. They prefer that. They operate better in that regard. So it depends. E-learning can be very, very effective, but just like anything, you have to use it the right way. You really have to know what you're doing. And I'm not the most IT savvy person in the world. So whenever I do anything in organizations associated with CBT or e-learning, anything like that, I always partner up with their IT people. And we figure it out together. I'm more of the content expert. They're more of the technology expert. And together, we can usually put together something pretty good for the organization. So how to do this? Sort of the best practices, I guess, listed here. Things to keep in mind. And again, we've covered this stuff in class in terms of the the needs assessment and, making that learning experience and even the online environment one that's interesting and engaging and informative, that sort of thing. Here, again, some more suggestions for making it a little more engaging for individuals. In terms of the content itself, how we cobble this stuff together, a number of ways we could do it. Two most popular probably here, rapid prototyping, where we build something from the ground up. And there have been a number of training programs that I've started from just a blank sheet of paper. And we put a rough draft together, we show it to some folks, have them offer their feedback. We'll go through some iterations, we'll program something, we'll go live with it, we'll try it out, we'll do pilot tests and things such as that. And we build this prototype and we, try for, proof of concept sort of thing. We run our test and see what trainees liked, what they didn't like, and keep refining it until we have sort of a finished product that we're happy with and then can roll out organization-wide. Sometimes what we do is simple repurposing. And just as it says, it's almost like a recycling type of thing where, for example, like this class, I give it in person. And a few years ago, I was told, hey, you got to give this online from now on. So figure it out, take your materials, try to, some of it will fit online, some of it won't. So you're going to have to, do some other things here in the class for this online format that you don't do in the classroom and vice versa. So there, you have to look at what you have currently, what will fit seamlessly into a web-based or online environment, and what will be problematic, and also what more you can add to help the learning process along. What about learner control? This is a big one. What do I mean by that? Degree to which trainees are given the option to learn actively and independently relative to a number of different factors. There can't be too much structure. Now, obviously, with this class, we did this as more of a half and half, not really hybrid. That's not really the proper term for it, but it's close. Where, we meet every Thursday from 6 o'clock on to 7:30, 8 o'clock at the latest. And I have different assignments I give you when they're due by certain dates, or the exam. I give you a 3-day weekend to get the midterm or the final exam done. I don't make it such that, the exam, everyone has to take it Tuesday at 8 p.m. and you have to be done by 10 p.m. So clear your calendar. You got to be sitting in front of your computer at that time to take the exam. So, very specific things in terms of giving you an assignment. You have 8 hours to turn it around and send it back, things like that. Trainees, students, learners want a little more flexibility. They want a little more leeway to do stuff when they want, when it's convenient for them, when it fits into their schedule. So anything related to assignments and exams and reading the materials, all of that, trainees typically, their feedback is, hey, we want a little more control, a little more flexibility in that regard. In terms of collaboration, number of ways that we can do this. And with this class, obviously we have some collaboration, but you with your training projects, you're going to have to maybe figure out some of this yourself and how you want to interact with each other, especially if you're going to do it from afar. So here's a list of, obviously, again, things you're familiar with: email and message boards, chat rooms, so on and so forth. So I don't think I'm sharing with you anything that is revolutionary or groundbreaking here tonight. Learner incentives. We talked about this earlier in the semester when we were talking about bringing people in maybe on a Saturday to do a training program and what you can do to sweeten the pot a little bit more, almost bribe them in a sense, I guess. I don't really want to use the word bribe them, but you want to, make it such that, hey, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? What more can you give me? That sort of thing. So there are a number of incentives that organizations have used to get people to either start these training programs, finish these training programs, whatever it is, whether it be entering their names in drawings for things, having prizes, giveaways, things such as that, getting certified in different training modules, depending on what it is you are learning, whatever training modules you complete, there may be either a bonus tied to that or maybe a promotion or at least a promotion opportunity. So to be considered for this management position, you have to go through this battery of 5 classes, that sort of thing. And so by using something like that, trainees feel that, hey, okay, yeah, I'm learning intrinsic motivation, blah, 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 but there's actually more attached to that. It's more worth my while to go through and complete this training program, whatever it may be. Using social media, and this one's a little trickier, but a number of organizations have been using social media as a way of sending out information blasts to their employees, alerting them to different things that are going on in the workplace, or maybe if they have open houses, using it as a recruiting tool, that sort of thing. So a number of organizations have been playing around with this a little bit and seeing how they can integrate social media into their current training initiatives. Some things to keep in mind. If you're using social media, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what sort of firewalls you put up on these things in the workplace, so on and so forth, what exactly employees are using it for and what is accessible to other people outside the organization, all of that, different things that you need to keep in mind, to factor into your decision-making process related to this topic. I mentioned hybrid learning, or sometimes called blended learning. I describe it as the best of both worlds. So here we would have some face-to-face learning, some online learning. So those of you who prefer the online stuff, okay, well, that should make you happy. Those of you who prefer the face-to-face stuff, okay, well, that makes you happy too. It's, we're trying to split the difference here and make both groups happy. So maybe what I do is I require you to come into class once a month for these lectures. Maybe we're going to do some sort of activity where I'm handing out papers, worksheets. You're going to get together in small groups and, do little projects that day. Maybe I require you to physically come into class, here in the classroom, to take quizzes, surveys, your exams, midterm, final exam, that sort of thing. But everything else then will be done online. So some people like this only because they get a little taste of both sides of the coin there. Here, as we did with the previous chapter, some advantages and disadvantages of using this blended or this hybrid learning. And of course, a number of colleges and universities now are going to either hybrid classes or online classes. That's the new way of doing things, whether you like it or not. That's the way I'm in these strategy meetings all the time, and CSU is one that more and more and more, they're offering more classes online. As a matter of fact, which one? The MBA degree or MLRHR, one of them, I forget which one, they offer one that's completely online now. You don't have to come to class for anything if you don't want to. So that's sort of the way we're doing it in 2022 here. Simulations, talked about these back in chapter 7. Sometimes I've seen with these things, depending on how you set it up on people's desktop, they can create a little avatar, a little character that guides them, coaches them, gives them advice that they can interact with, that sort of thing. So it's almost like a video game, that gamification of training, that there are a number of organizations out there who are really good at that it feels like you're playing on a PlayStation or Xbox or something, and you're actually learning something through this little avatar going through these motions. Here again, some advantages and disadvantages of simulations. And again, back when we were talking about this, depending on how much technology you use with simulations, that's why we talk about it in chapter 7 and 8 here. Back with simulations, I mentioned like doing surgery or flying an airplane, commercial airline, police work, number of simulation, number of software, things there, that sort of thing. Obviously, a lot of advantages, especially with those what are called high stakes jobs, where a mistake in training could mean a loss of life. So you want people to practice on something that has high fidelity, seems very realistic, but if the trainee makes a mistake, somebody's not going to get hurt and or killed. Different types of simulations shown here. And again, you can read these on your own free time. I don't want to go through all of this and read this to you verbatim here, but there are different ways you could set this up where it's a lot of back and forth interaction between the learner and the software itself or the learning platform. Simulations, there are variations on these. Virtual reality, again, one that all of you are familiar with. You put on the goggles and you feel that you're in this this realistic world here, and you move around and you walk around and grab objects and interact with people, that sort of thing. Number of organizations are using virtual reality as part of their training initiative. So the pros and cons of virtual reality listed here. Virtual worlds, such as Second Life, there's some other variations on this here, where these are kind of neat, that it looks and feels like an actual workplace. And you're walking around and you're walking in different buildings, and these buildings in cyberspace look like the actual buildings in the physical world, that sort of thing. You could do a lot of interpersonal type skills training with these sorts of things. A lot more fun. Again, it feels like a video game type thing that, depending on the nature of your industry or your occupation, something like this might be useful. Mobile technology. Obviously, all of us have our phones attached on our hips most hours of the day. So a number of the more cutting edge organizations are trying to figure out, okay, how can we set this up where employees don't abuse it, yet at the same time, by having their phones, if they have a question, if there's something they need related to a policy, a procedure, job aid, what have you, they can just pull out their phone and get the answer right there within a half a minute. So using something like this, and obviously you got to make sure you have the bandwidth to accommodate something like this. Even if you're using any sort of wireless technology, that I've been at different seminars, different conferences, things such as that, and you have hundreds, if not thousands of people, which is great, but they're all getting on the hotel's Wi-Fi, and it is basically crashing it. It can't take that capacity. So you have to make sure that you have sort of the technological infrastructure in place if you're going to use some sort of Wi-Fi technology. Thing is, just like anything, employees have to know when, where, and how to use this stuff. So there is going to be a learning component, a training component here. And depending on, if they have an iPhone, if they're running Android system, if it's, an iPhone, what versions, what model, the iPhone 8, 9, 10, 11, just like you see this with software, especially like Windows. And, we don't support Windows 95 anymore, Windows, Vista, whatever it is. You got to make sure that, hey, people have different phones using different operating systems. Some are newer phones, some are older phones. Okay, what can do, what phones can access what technology in the workplace? So that's something that some organizations don't think about until it's too late. So they start getting a lot of complaints from people that, hey, I'm trying to get my phone, I keep getting error messages. It's like, oh yeah, sorry that your phone won't work for this. We've even seen that here at CSU with a Blackboard. I know some of you have experienced this, that when you first get on the Blackboard, I forget what it says, they recommend using Chrome or something. Don't use Firefox, or, use something version 8 and later. I don't know what exactly it says, but students, some of my students, I don't know if it was necessarily this class, it might have been other classes, were trying to get access to our Blackboard site and couldn't do it. And they were just using the wrong browser or an older version of that browser. So things like that you need to think about as you're building this out. Distance learning, again, we are learning, from afar here. A lot of great stuff we could do with this. I've done a lot of distance learning training courses with people all over the world. As a matter of fact, back when I was at Central Michigan, we had a joint teaching initiative. It was Central Michigan and University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And we had students in both classrooms. And some of you, I'm sure, have even experienced something like this, where you're in the classroom, you have the camera mounted up high somewhere so you can see the classroom, see the professor, and you're interacting with a classroom somewhere else, in the country, out of the country, whatever. And it's almost like you have the two classrooms that are joined together. They're just in two physically different locations. Pros and cons of distance learning shown here. When training technologies are most beneficial to you, just some suggestions if you're trying to decide, do we want to go this route or not? And I've been in some of these committees where, we have an idea, hey, we can sort of get with the 21st century here, but is it necessary? Is it the right thing to do? Here's a checklist for you to kind of help you decide if this is the right path to take or not. An ITS, also referred to as an intelligent tutoring system. These are really cool. This is used with what's referred to as adaptive training, where it uses artificial intelligence to kind of ebb and flow the direction of the training materials and what is assigned to people. It's very, very customized, individually tailored to each trainee's needs. So using artificial intelligence, it's the same concept basically. If you get on Amazon, you buy something and, if you like that movie, you might like these movies as well. Or with Netflix or anything like that, same type thing where you read a module, you read some content, it then maybe recommends something else to read. Or if you take a quiz, based on how well you did on that quiz, it'll send you down path A, path B, or path C. Almost like back in the day, when I was a kid, they had these choose your own adventure books where you read a story and you get to the bottom of one page. It says, okay, if you're confronted with a knight, the enemy, and do you run away? Do you draw your sword? That sort of thing. If you draw your sword, turn to page 32. If you run away, turn to page 45. It's that sort of thing where it goes back and forth, ebbs and flows based on the content you submit or what you provide on your end. Here, just shown here, if you want to get into all the technical nitty gritty, the components of an ITS. Again, these are really cool. People tend to like them because they are so customized to them. They don't have to go through a lot of extra content and take different assessments and things that they already know the material. It may not apply to them. A number of different things that it makes that training experience unique to each individual learner. An expert system. So as we gather information, we, instead of putting it in a notebook or in a binder somewhere, we file it electronically. So this is a technology that has, flow charts and procedures manuals and step-by-step instructions, that sort of thing, that can either support training or be used as the primary training materials themselves, I suppose. That as we accumulate knowledge or different ways of doing things in the workplace, different things we've learned, whatever it may be, we store it electronically somewhere. And that way, if you need a refresher, you could always log in and access that information. If there's somebody new to the organization, we could say, here's some assignments. We want you to go here and read this, access this, sign off on this, whatever it may be, to access help, trainees, experts 24/7, different things. They can set up little chats and different things. If you have a question, you can log in and ask a question and get a response right away. This interactive type of platform has been very beneficial in the workplace. An EPSS, also referred to as an electronic performance support system. So this is, with Microsoft, I know they were big on those wizards, or, one time I thought you had a little dog or something, or there was a paper clip and that sort of thing, that it's, again, an artificial intelligence sort of thing that recognizes what you're doing or what it looks like you're trying to do as you're typing away. And it'll pop in and offer suggestions or help you route you to a certain site to get answers to whatever it is you need. So maybe I'm typing something up, and it looks like I'm doing a mail merge. And so this box will pop up. Oh, are you trying to do a mail merge? Would you like help with that? And click yes. Okay, step 1, go here. Step 2, go here. And it does a little more hand holding. It recognizes what it is you're trying to do and just offers some assistance to make the process for you go a little bit smoother. An LMS, now these are really, really cool, and these are big bucks. These cost a ton of money. These are the BMWs, the Cadillacs, the Mercedes Benzes of training and development technology here. I describe it as a one-stop shop. A training platform here that does everything and anything related to training and development. You just send everybody here. You got a question when a particular class on workplace communication is going to be offered, go here and find it. You want to get a job aid for something from a training class you learned, you participated in a couple weeks ago, go here. If I want you to get certified on something, I want you to read some articles and then take a quiz on what you just read, go here. And what's neat about this is the trainer or the person overseeing this they create a dashboard for him or her. And what that allows that person to do is to see, okay, what courses have people been taking? What pages have they been looking at? How long do they stay on each page? This topic they read about an average of 7 minutes, this one 12 minutes. As they go, they can look at quizzes and see when you took a quiz, what you got on the quiz, what you got right, what you got wrong, what you did after that quiz, those types of things. I can do a lot of these different things in Blackboard. I can see a lot of what you're doing in terms of what pages you're looking at on our Blackboard site, what you're answering on the exam, how long you're spending on each exam question, all of that stuff. So I have like my own little dashboard as a professor. There's even a column when the last time was that you logged into Blackboard to check out anything on our course site, so on and so forth. So I could look and see, hey, Mary hasn't been checking things out for the past 3 weeks. I wonder what's going on here, sort of thing. So these LMSs are really cool because they do everything for you. You need relatively few people to oversee these. You need more technology people to not only set them up, but maintain them. But in terms of doing everything and anything, all the bells and whistles related to training development, they're all housed in an LMS if you can afford it and if you can set it up. I mentioned all the different pieces, parts, the different bells and whistles. Here you go, and you'll see training is just a small part of it. I mean, there's a lot that these things do. In terms of your learning platform, your learning infrastructure, this is driving everything. An LMS does it all. So everybody in the organization, all of their training, all their class, everything's online, all their quizzes online, access to job aid, everything is right there housed on this LMS. As I said, sort of a one-stop shop for everything training and development related. Why you might want to use something like this? Now, again, depending on your resources, the size of your organization, how much money you have to spend. Now, you can design smaller versions of this. Kind of depends what you want. But here are some reasons why you might want to do this in terms of compartmentalizing or centralizing everything. If you want to track what people are learning, how they're learning, what they're accessing, that sort of thing. If you have an organization where people are geographically dispersed all over the place, this is easy. You just give them access to this and they can learn this stuff on their own. So a number of benefits to using an LMS. But again, very costly to have one of these. Here are some of the more popular ones that I've encountered in workplaces in my experience as a trainer. Some of them more common than others. Some of them, depending on the nature of the business or where they're housed, if they're West Coast or South or what, people geographically tend to have their own preferences here. Some of these are cheaper than others. Some are more expensive than others. Some of them integrate with other HR technologies. So maybe your recruiting function, your comp and benefits, all of that may be tied into this. Maybe training and development is just one small part of everything that is connected together, running your organization's HR functions. And then finally, okay, well, what should I do next? Where should I begin? What sort of things do we need to talk about if we're thinking of moving in more of a technology-based direction here, depending on what it is that you want to do, simulation or LMS, anything in between. Here are some of the factors to consider. Here are the things that you're going to have a heart-to-heart with a number of people in the organization. Top management, your IT people, even the employees. I want to get their feedback on this and think if this, ask them, is this something that we think they want? Let's check with them just to be safe, get some of their feedback. Your HR folks, obviously, that, once you hammer out these details, once you have these discussions, then you tend to have a better sense of, is this right for us? And if it is, what do we do next? So who do we contact? What direction do we go to start setting this up and making this happen? Now, with anything like this, and it's worth mentioning, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, but you always want to run parallel systems when you set something up like this. So, for example, there's all the talk right now of moving more toward sustainable, renewable energy, solar panels and wind and so on and so forth. And that's all well and good. That's noble. I get it. But at the same time, you can't just close every gas station or shut down gas pumps or that sort of thing, because there's nothing, we're not there yet. So the reason I use that example is because in some organizations where they've gone this route, they've shut down all of their other HR functions and training, so on and so forth, going this direction, and they were still kind of building it. They weren't there yet. So you have to kind of run both of them, the old school and new school, at the same time until you get to the point where you've gotten all the bugs out of this. It works. It does what you want it to do, all of that. And then that old school, that old technology or system, whatever you're using, that's then when you hit the off switch. That's when you shut it off, and this is the new way of doing things. But you kind of build both of them or use both of them at the same time, because obviously with technology, there are a lot of kinks you're going to have to work out. You are going to run into so many problems, it's going to make your head spin. I've run into numerous problems, and those are just the few that I spotted myself with organizations that were kind of transitioning over to these, using more technology. You still want to keep the old school stuff, keep doing what you were doing until this is proven to work. Because if not, then you're left with nothing. And, you can't get people paid, you can't get people recruited, you can't get people hired, that sort of thing. And I've actually seen this firsthand, and it was a complete disaster. How these organizations did not go bankrupt doing this, I have no idea, because they pretty much shut themselves down. They pretty much slit their own throats. So you don't want to do that. So this is a transition process. When you integrate more technology into training, it's not an either or thing, at least not initially. Until you know that this technology is doing what you want it to do, then you get rid of the old stuff. So with that being said, that is all that I have for you tonight. So what do we have? We got with me, was that 16, 18? God, my vision is terrible there. So I don't have anything else for you tonight, just a couple things that I want to mention. And I was hoping to get done 45 minutes to an hour. So we're right at 45 minutes. So that is perfect. So I'm glad this worked.